Give me a minute, and I want to talk about what's in the Russian papers this morning. Because while here in the West, where we have a free press, everybody, of course, is talking about this. This is the Russian landing ship, the Novocherkassk, which was hit yesterday in the port of Fedosia. It was carrying, they're reporting now, 152 millimeter shells, several thousand. It was carrying several hundred, between 400 and 600 glide bombs. It was carrying maybe a couple thousand Shahed drones of the 131, 136 variety. So it was loaded to the teeth with munitions. And it shows. It shows. The secondary explosions and the cook-off time were extraordinary. And so naturally, this is the big story in the Western press today. It is worth pointing out that it does not appear in the Russian press, except maybe on page 16 of TASS, a very generic line about a ship being damaged in the Crimean Peninsula. That's it. However, in Roskaya, we got this guy, Sergei Kargaminov, something like that. I apologize, but he's a Kremlin advisor. He's a person who gets interviewed in Roskaya, and you don't get into Roskaya, and nothing gets into Roskaya unless the Kremlin has approved it. And so I want to read you here the direct. A translation that I believe is a good translation. This is by the London Times bureau guy in Moscow. Rosenblum, I think is his name. And he gives us this translation of Sergei's words here. Russia has liberated the world from the Western yoke. The West is lowering the Iron Curtain. By restraining the West, and of course, this is the narrative that it's all the West's fault, right? But by restraining the West and by building relations with brotherly China, we are now becoming the axis of the earth. We have joined the battle to save the world. We don't need the West. We have gotten everything that we could from this wonderful European journey that Peter the Great began. Now we need to return home. What does that mean? What does that mean? Why would you say such a thing? And where is home? Well, for 300 years, Moscow paid tribute to the Golden Horde, the Mongols, right? It looks like he's talking about developing Siberia in a relationship with China. It would appear to me, reading this, that they're blaming the West, not themselves, for bringing down this Iron Curtain against Europe. It sounds like they're starting to think of abandoning all notions of expanding into Europe and focusing on their eastward expansion, or their eastward development anyway, because there's nowhere left to expand east. It looks like increasingly the power brokers at the Kremlin are aware that disaster and defeat are breathing down their necks. And they're looking for a way out of this morass that they've created of blood and death. Well, it is not that easy. You don't get to do what they have done and then just say, oh, we're going to go work with the Chinese now and ignore the fact of Europe's existence. That's not how this works. There's reparations to be made. There's still a war going on. There's new borders to talk about. Yes, there are. So this, to me, this official statement to me says that Moscow is scared shitless. And they ought to be. They brought this disaster on themselves, and they have no one to blame but themselves. All these self-flagellating assholes in the West who want to blame NATO expansion can shut the fuck up. Ukraine, the Baltics, Poland, they all had their own right to self-determination, not to live under the yoke of the Kremlin demands and pay tribute to the Kremlin. Fuck the Kremlin. And fuck anybody that listens to their bullshit. Enough already.